Police make a wild discovery underneath a synagogue in Brooklyn.
An illegal tunnel found below the Chabad Lubavitch world headquarters in Crown Heights.
Authorities say a group of Jewish men who had a long simmering disagreement burrowed through tunnels under several buildings to break into the synagogue. They got into fights and destroyed fixtures.
The cement truck was here, and these individuals or some of their friends perhaps who broke through some of those adjoining properties disrupted the repairs and ultimately broke through the wall in the sanctuary and vandalized that wall as well. They've since been arrested.
I swear to God, I'm not being anti-Semitic. Jewish dude coming out of a sword grate in New York.
So the tunnels were not for COVID. The tunnels were for something else. And if you look at some of the videos that are coming out about the tunnels, you see blood-stained mattresses, or what we think are blood-stained mattresses. The stains are brown. And
it sounds like they were attempting to transport things that needed to be hidden from the surface.
It's just a tape.
New York, at times, can feel like a desolate urban hell, a hologram of human activity where millions of people exist, but few of them actually live. The French philosopher Baudrillard, upon visiting New York, said there's no human reason to be here, except for the sheer ecstasy of being crowded together. Too many people for a social fabric, too many people for morals, too many people to smile at in the street, too many people to hold the door open for, too many people to feel like a person. An ecosystem of vermin, concrete, halal carts, and electricity. And yet, in the right neighborhood, you can find a sense of community like nowhere else in the world. Crown Heights is one of many Jewish neighborhoods in New York, set apart by its Hasidic Jewish population. It is home to the Orthodox religious organization Chabad Lubavitch, which originated in Eastern Europe, but following the Holocaust and the pogroms of the 20th century, permanently relocated to this Brooklyn neighborhood. The streets are quainter, the buildings smaller, the people more familiar, a close-knit community with a long history in the city. Last year, Chabad was at the center of a controversy, following a riot with police over an illegal tunneling apparatus in their main synagogue, which concluded with their arrest of a dozen men. The whole ordeal fueled many anti-Semitic conspiracies, new and old, with claims that a secret sex ring was sheltered by the tunnels, that the organization had cabal ties and was involved in nefarious activities, with some people even rekindling conspiracies tying the dancing traditions of the group to 9/11.
No, he was working for Clearview AI. He's working for Peter Thiel. And a lot of them were. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Jared Kushner ran the campaign, then ran the White House. And Kushner is a Lubavitcher. Kushner, and if you know about Chabad Lubavitch, it's pretty freaky stuff. Kushner's at 666 Fifth Avenue.
Little was present in the media following the immediate altercation with police, which only fanned the flames of further conspiracies. So, we decided to go there ourselves, aiming to join a Jewish tour of the synagogue and get to the bottom of what really happened. If there was truly something suspicious at play, and to see what all the dancing was about. We're here in Jewish Brooklyn for our tour of the Crown Heights with Chabad Lubavitch.
Why do Jewish people have circle dancing? If you ever been to a bar mitzvah, a wedding, or been to Israel, you see circle dancing. What circle dancing is all about? When God looks down from heaven and sees us all holding hands and dancing in a circle and joyous and happy with life, happy with what life has to offer us, that is the greatest way of dancing.
We're here at the site of the tour location where so far only instructions are to go to this individual's house, knock on the door, and we'll meet him there. The difference between the Crown Heights and the rest of Brooklyn can't be understated. Coming out of Kingston Station feels more like teleporting to Jerusalem than walking into a different part of New York. The street signs are all in Hebrew, the people dressed in traditional 20th century European garments. The streets are quiet. There are private Jewish ambulances, buses, businesses, schools. We booked a tour with Jewish Brooklyn NYC, led by a rabbi who had us meet him in his home as the starting point. Apparently, they're notable for their touring organization, even being featured in countless YouTube travel blogs. The table was full of baked goods, set for 12 people, and he gave us a history of the neighborhood and its origin. He gave us a history of Hasidic Judaism, its presence in the Crown Heights, and the current day-to-day experience of a Hasidic Jew. Many emigrated here during the arduous 20th century from Europe and preserved their traditional culture in the process, hence the attire and the language of the streets. The families here are big, everyone knows each other, and the centerpiece of the community is the synagogue, which inside of it possesses a yeshiva, a Jewish religious school. Jews go through yeshiva to become rabbis, as common as college and secular societies. And the yeshiva at the 770 synagogue is comprised of many different young men from all over the world studying in the Heights. Students from Europe, Israel, Latin America. As we embarked on our tour, I couldn't help but notice an unaddressed elephant in the room. A face plastered on every street and bakery and road sign in the community, often with the words, "Messiah is coming."
I don't know exactly what's happening. All I know is very short clips that I found on the internet. But the funniest thing is this one guy on Twitter that was saying a while back, I live on a ground floor apartment and I hear Jews underneath me. And everybody's like, you're out of your fucking mind.
Yeah, that's anti-Semitic.
Exactly.
Think of hearing noises under your house.
Although it is not true that someone had tweeted about the tunnels and hearing Yiddish under his floorboards before the riot, it is true that someone had posted about the tunnels 3 weeks before the bust, on the local Crown Heights blog. This post was the first public or private alarm bell regarding the situation. The poster received immense backlash for their conspiratorial post until they were vindicated the day of the January riot, when everything was unearthed. Here are the angles of that riot, from videos taken on the scene in that synagogue on that day in early January.
In Crown Heights, Brooklyn, police have arrested 12 people at the Chabad Lubavitch World Headquarters after a fight over a tunnel. A Chabad spokesman blames that incident on what he called a group of extremist students. He says the tunnel linked the headquarters building with a vacant building behind it and gave those students in question unauthorized access. He also accused those students of vandalizing the synagogue inside the building by breaking through that wall. Right now, the exact motive behind the construction of the tunnel is still not clear. The Chabad spokesman says the headquarters has been temporarily closed now to allow for a structural safety review.
I want to clear on Shuba. Oh, Shuba? Wait, man. They want to fix this tonight. They need the shoe clear. And to... Why? You need to expensive section. But not like this. It's not safe. We don't do that in America.
Our tour guide, Mayor, showed us everything there was to see. The barbershop, the bakery, the Torah scrolls. His passion for his community was obvious, as well as the joy he got from sharing it.
Okay. Everyone made it up the steps? Welcome.
This community had clearly been through a lot. Outsiders seeking to defame it are not infrequent. Conspiracies run deep and few seek to understand. However, I couldn't get the imagery of the riot out of my head. It seemed so uncharacteristic, and every new part of the tour was making it seem more unorthodox.
There are a bunch of different Hasidic communities around Brooklyn. This is just one of them. And the real differentiating factor between the different communities is the Rebbe, the teacher, the mentor, spiritual leader. And that's something that gets passed down from father to son. It's a lineage. So we call this guy the Alter Rebbe because he is the original. He started this Hasidic community back in the late 1700s. And then his children and grandchildren have taken over that leadership.
And then I got my first hint.
Picture of a rabbi in my house with a white beard. You might see his picture all over the place here. That is his great-grandson 7 generations later. So this is the original.
And as we were led to the synagogue, more and more of my questions got answered, especially after someone asked about a familiar face, which we saw throughout the whole neighborhood.
You seen him?
Just the stickers.
Yeah,
stickers. Messiah's here.
Yeah, he made his way around. He was the most recent Rebbe here in Crown Heights. And he told people.
The Holocaust nearly wiped out the Lubavitchers, and the Rabbi Menachem Schneerson only narrowly escaped a similar fate. Having been born in Ukraine, the first part of his life was defined by constant migrations around Europe, escaping the pogroms of the East and the Nazi rule of the West, until he eventually landed in New York in the middle of the 20th century. His father-in-law, the Chabad Rebbe at the time, had already sought refuge in America, and the community quickly made Brooklyn home. He succeeded his father-in-law as the Rebbe in 1950 and became renowned for his charity work, encouraging giving as a habit of life. He was also venerated by the Jewish community at large, as Chabad made great efforts to rekindle people with their Judaism who lost connection to their heritage over the many millennia of persecutions they endured. Lubavitchers are messianic in their tradition, meaning they believe a Rebbe of theirs will become the Messiah, and eventually many started to believe it would be Schneerson himself. Schneerson unequivocally opposed any allusions to him as the Messiah, asking a Hasid in Israel named Abraham Parij and years later another Shalom Walpo to stop circulating letters and booklets that purported him to be the Messiah. These instances happened in 1965 and the 80s, respectively. He also banned the singing of a song which was about the messianic status of Schneerson around the same time. In the late 80s and very early 90s, many Lubavitchers became so vocal about their belief in Schneerson's messianism that they would break out into song during Shabbat, much to the dismay of the rabbi. However, the rabbi suffered a series of strokes in the 90s which were of great detriment to his health. Concurrent to the strokes, the community was at the center of a riot after a motorcade in the rabbi's car ran a yellow or red light and struck 2 children, pinning and killing one of them. A private Jewish ambulance responded to the scene in seconds, saving the Jewish driver while leaving the child behind. Bystanders said the act was deliberate, while the Lubavitchers argued it was because the ambulance was berated by onlookers when they responded to the scene. The community went up in flames, and a retaliatory killing of the Lubavitcher occurred.
A car driven by a Hasidic man went out of control, jumped a curb, eventually pinned the children against a wall. Dozens of demonstrators vented their anger with bottles and rocks that kept police in...
Following these events of the early 90s, the rabbi's position on his messianic status became rather unclear. In 1991, he responded with Amen after a rabbi declared him King Messiah 3 times. In 1992, he explicitly said to a journalist that he was not the Messiah when the journalist had alluded to him being so. In 1993, he allowed books to be published referring to him as the Messiah and stopped protesting the singing of the messianic song at Shabbat, even occasionally nodding his head to the lyrics and moving his arm. And then, the following year, he died. He left no successor outlined in his will, and the Lubavitchers were left with no rabbi and none to follow.
And a few months ago, this day, he feels pain all the time, and he feels to be ill.
Lucas maybe became a healthy boy, and instead of begging for his friend, it is better to give to pocket to charity from his pocket money, but I leave on Shama shall appear.
I never met him. I was born after he passed away.
But I was affected by his ideas.
If you guys had never heard of him before today, the fact that you're here today in Crown Heights,
thanks to that rabbi.
Like Meir, many of the young Hasids in the community never interacted with the rabbi and are only acquainted with the memory of him. They long for his return, for a synagogue led by their religious figure, to guide them in this confusing time. They are the demographic most likely to believe in Schneerson's messianism, and to this day they maintain that he will return, either revealing that he had never died to begin with, or through the means of resurrection. They are the ones who are responsible for all the posters around town, and, similarly, they were the ones digging the tunnel underground, attempting to gain unregulated access to the synagogue, to secretly take texts outside of the synagogue, hoping to find textually grounded evidence for their theories, to confirm his return. The parent Lubavitch organization has been attempting to crack down on them for decades, which has included litigation and access restriction. And this seemed to be the peak of the dispute, the Messianic youth's grandstand against the religious establishment. Their yearning has inspired a sort of zealotry dividing this community, and the riot, in many ways, punctuated it. As we entered the yeshiva where the youth were studying, the remnants of the tunnel entry points were sealed off by the redone walls, and over the students hung a banner alluding to the Messiah, the King Rabbi. Yet everything was cordial, symptoms of a community divided over a lingering shadow of previously defined direction, unsure of where to go now, simultaneously flourishing and mourning itself, both grieving and in utero, as its next chapter remains ill-defined.
Hat nicht die jüdischen Jungen Stadt genannt, die haben die Lage. Hat nicht die jüdischen Jungen, das hat gedacht, das ist eben jüdischen Jungen. Die ist Susanne.
How sad are we, and how sad have we been? We'll let you know, we'll let you know, oh, but only you're really interested. You wonder how we've stayed alive till now. We'll let you know, we'll let you know, but only if you're really interested.